I'm Jodie, a relationship and sex therapist based in Southern California, and today we're going to continue our review of Love Island Season 8, Episodes 8 and 9. I have my notes here. I have so many notes on these two episodes. As now the younger generation says, there's a lot of crash outs happening and they are good. With episode 8, we pick up right after Sincere and Soul were in the speakeasy having their kind of chat, not date, but chat. You saw that Melanie kind of came in and interrupted. We're kind of coming in like right after the aftermath of that. Melanie is upset. Sincere, discloses that they did make out in the speakeasy. Of course, Melanie, first of all, anyone's gonna kind of have that kind of reaction. Like, you're trying to build relationships, even though you know it's a show, you're building emotional connections with people, you're kind of coupled up, you're gonna feel insecure. Melanie just happens to be one of the people on the show that has a lot of insecurities, like does not really handle them well, hence why I'm saying the crash out's kind of happening. There was a point where Melanie said, I'm not gonna go crazy in this villa. Sorry, but a little too late for that. This isn't the first time that this has happened. She does kind of have a tendency to kind of react either through anger or gets emotional. Girl, it's already been happening, it's already seen. Thought it was a little bit too late. I know that's the thing we kind of say to ourselves to kind of help us to try to survive and not feel bad when these things happen, but I was like, I think that's one good thing about this show is even though you're kind of in like an experiment, and of course things are gonna be heightened a little bit, it does give people an opportunity to kind of really see what sides of themselves come out in this show. And I think for Melanie especially, this is gonna be a reflection for her, and I hope that it moves towards a little bit more growth on just navigating these situations, being mindful of partners. But again, I think Sincere has been a little bit on both sides. However, I think this is what's gonna happen. I think this will be a good reflection moment for her, definitely to grow. A lot of these people are young, so it's not necessarily unexpected that some of these reactions, but I do have a lot of hope that like a lot of like younger generations now are a little bit more emotionally mature. Therapy is more common. There's kind of a push on like more mature behavior, but again, there's only so much you're gonna be able to do sometimes when our brains aren't fully developed. We're still navigating relationships, we're new to all this, we're still figuring out who we are as a person. It's kind of hard to have too much growth there at that point in life.
Tells me why he's first.
Oh, I don't know.
No, it helps, but it's still.
Let me think.
No, even if we do know, it still helps to talk about it.
Sincere lied about wanting to kiss Soul or wanting to explore with Soul. I think that Sincere is not being very honest about his intentions and his interests, and he's kind of like does this almost like gaslighting thing with Melanie, saying, oh no, I'm mainly focused on you.
Of course I want to be with you. I only want to be with you. You're my only connection that I feel like, and that's all I want. We're gonna fix this.
While you're meeting Soul multiple times and making out with Soul multiple times and clearly stating to the camera that you want to keep exploring that and that you're feeling really good there, I think this is where Sincere's immaturity is kind of coming out. I understand it's all well-intended, like he's trying not to hurt anybody. He also cares about Melanie, but he also starting to care about Soul. But again, he's kind of downplaying it, I think, which then is blowing up in his face because then Melanie's like, well, wait a second, you just said this and then you went and did this. She's gonna kind of spin out when that happens, and it's just gonna go nowhere good. It's just gonna start to become this toxic, immature cycle. Both of them are kind of giving me, ooh, we're heading to not a good place right now. There was a part where Melanie pulled Corbin.
Corbin, can I pull you for a chat?
Yeah, let's do it. Oh shit! I was finna pull you, but she pulled me. Fuck.
Corbin, he has admitted this before that he has kind of like a player vibe at times, but was really trying not to give into it and was attempting to be more mature. But again, it came out again during this where he's like basically asking Melanie to kiss, and Melanie's like, no, I don't want to do that. I think that's maybe not appropriate at this time. Melanie never actually talked to Kenzie before pulling Corbin for the chat, so of course that gets to be a little bit like, what are we doing here? But then didn't want to make out with Corbin because of loyalty to Kenzie. It's not looking too good. Of course, Kenzie was gonna have feelings about that. Also, Kenzie kind of a little bit hypocritical. Girl, you're also exploring multiple people, but then have feelings when your partner and one of your friends are exploring other people's. I get it. It makes sense. However, we're all doing this, so no one's really the victim here. You can have your feelings, but like getting upset with each other about it is where it starts to get more into like the hypocritical component. Like if you went in and said, hey, yeah, no, I get it. I could have handled that better. I totally understand. I'm feeling a little bit insecure about it, but at the same time, I know I'm doing this too. Melanie definitely should have talked to Kenzie beforehand. They're friends. Corbin shouldn't have been asking Melanie to make out already. And then Kenzie shouldn't be getting upset with Melanie for that. Or Corbin. I don't think she was really upset with Corbin as much as Melanie. Kenzie's over here hanging out with the new guy and also with Corbin. Corbin was mature and kind of acting secure when Kenzie shared about her kiss with Kayla. Good on Kenzie on being honest about that, and for Corbin to not kind of like spiral out and get really insecure about it as well. Kenzie did share that she was thinking about Corbin. Kenzie's kind of going back and forth, again, getting a little bit of kind of flags for their relationship, so I'm kind of really starting to question, what's that gonna be like? Just switching kind of gears a little bit, Trinity asked Bryce to be more affectionate. One thing I did not like about that conversation, again, that's a totally reasonable request, right? I want to know, like, how do I know you like me? Or is this feeling more platonic? Like, I want to feel more affectionate with each other. Sure. There was something of like what should be happening. I'm not saying that they are, but as a neurodivergent person, there's something really kind of triggering around what should or should, like when you use that language of what should or shouldn't be happening. Okay, that doesn't mean that there might be things that are like the norm. There's like already you've kind of decided that something was right or wrong. Then you're kind of placing blame on somebody for like not following that like criteria. This is definitely something, I mean, I talk to couples about all the time of like using absolute language, shouldn'ts, like some of these kind of things versus like, I would like that. I'm not gonna then try to tell you you're wrong because you're not doing something that I perceive as the right thing or most people do. I didn't really care for some of the language that was used, but I understood the request from Trinity of like, I'm not really sure if you actually like me or you just here, like, or I want my relationship with you, you know, our connection to look this way. Totally understandable. Bryce was kind of perceiving, same as I was, like that Trinity kind of comparing them was kind of more of an immature move, which yes, sure, it was. But of course, it is understandable to be like, hey, I see what other people are like, and we're not like that, so I'm kind of questioning our connection. It's kind of hard to tell, too, if like this is coming from more of a secure thing from Bryce or more of an insecure thing. Bryce kind of starts to act a little bit weird in these episodes, so again, I think some of his other insecure or just not mature parts are going to start to come out. I did think it was interesting that, of course, like Bryce is talking to the other guys, and one of the guys is Zach, and you know, Zach did kind of share that he didn't really think that they were a good match, which I think a lot of people are questioning that. They've kind of been on off, kind of coming back together after like the first bombshells came in, like it being like a default match, and so there was something weird about that, but then they kind of fell back into it, and it seemed like they were growing again. They are one that doesn't really have as much, and sometimes that's good. Sometimes that's a mature relationship. If you're familiar with attachment theory at all, like a lot of it is when there's no action, like it feels boring, right? And then you feel like it's the wrong thing when actually maybe that's actually a good match. It is going to be interesting to see where this goes. Unfortunately, I don't think a lot of those relationships tend to make it, but again, we shall see. I'm sensing like some cracks obviously with them, and so that's kind of interesting. Bryce eventually later in the episode talking about how he actually wants to explore Kata, and he actually was interested in Kata, feeling conflicted about that he actually, like, even when Kata came in, had interest in her as well, but because, you know, he's really close with Zach and Zach is matched with Kata, of course you're kind of in a bind, right? Same as we were talking about before with like Melanie and Kenzie. Ooh, we're kind of interested in the same guy, like how do you navigate this well? So he starts talking about that, and the episode ends up ending on Bryce actually talking to Trinity about it and Zach, and just kind of going over that with them and talking about it with them before he would even approach Kata. We have Gabrielle and Bea. Gabrielle was honest that he kissed both Jen and Sol. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Fuckboy energy is coming all off of Gabrielle. Okay, explore, but there's just something that feels kind of inauthentic about him. He was honest with Bea about it. You could feel the protective part of Bea coming up. What does that protective part look like? Oh, you don't have to tell me what you do. Oh, this is what we're doing now. Like those kind of things that you can kind of feel the distance and the guard come up. Understandable response. I just caution people when that's what's leading the conversation rather than actually talking about hurt. Those aren't really like vulnerable statements. They're more of like a, oh, okay, that's what we're doing now. Bea has talked about this before, like there's like a guardedness and kind of like a less feminine energy, if that's even what we want to call it, which, you know, usually equates to like vulnerability and softness, and, you know, that maybe not being how she engages. And again, that's totally okay. It's more so I always caution people on whether that's driving the bus, like this defensive part or this part that's hurt, but actually you're not going to have access to that hurt. You're just going to have access to like I said, oh, well, you don't have to tell me. Or like, oh, okay, that's what we're doing. Like, just, those are things that just have people watch. We had Casey and Anaya confirming that they're stable. Again, they are, I think, one of the front runners. They have been a little boring. You know, they have fun, but they're not gonna be the ones like making like an extreme like exciting episode. We had like the kind of bed paint make out thing. Anaya wasn't even like making out with everybody. Like she literally just could tell if that was them, moved on, only made out with Casey. Love them, super stable. Excited to see where it goes. So far, I'm feeling very confident in them. There was a Bea and Corbin chat. Not really. Nothing there there was really growing, so I mean, maybe they had a good conversation, but that was basically it. Episode 8 kind of ends with like Bryce kind of talking to Zach and Trinity separately about his interests, about his plan to maybe chat with Kata. He was really presenting it as like I just don't want to miss out on an opportunity. I want to make sure I'm exploring, so I'm making sure I'm going in the right direction. Was handling it maturely. Of course, they're both like, what? Understandable responses from them, but again, not necessarily wrong on Bryce. It does feel like maybe he's sabotaging a little bit based on the conversation with Trinity earlier, like he's just questioning things. We're moving into aftermath chats. Sincere and Melanie had a talk. It was just the same kind of nonsense. Sincere is hanging out with Soul. He's not really being honest. It's a lot, it just kind of screamed a lot of BS to me, and just not having a lot of authenticity and sincerity. I mean, how many times can we make that joke, right? That's literally my only note. I was like, BS. It was all bullshit, like just not feeling it. Bryce did pull Kata for a chat. While Bryce and Kata are talking, then Trinity and Zach are talking, not in like a pull a chat way, just kind of like, what are your thoughts about this? Like, how are you handling this? What's going on? Kata ended up telling Bryce, like, look, I'm just interested in you as a friend. She seemed like genuinely confused and kind of caught off guard that Bryce even pulled her for a real chat. That basically got squashed. I think Zach and Kata are definitely one of the strongest couples there. They had a little bit of a wobbly recently, but they are pretty locked in. They haven't really been expressing a lot of interest in other people. Then we had the challenge. So challenge was, it's like kind of like a voting thing where you had to put a pie in somebody's face. The girls were all like, oh, the guy that would be most likely to do this. Same thing on the other side. And then they would have to choose like an individual person. So that would be a group one, and they had one, like a second pieing that was like one person chose. This is where things kind of take a turn. The ones that really kind of stuck out were Bea kind of made out with Caleb quite a few times. So of course we're coming off of Gabrielle kind of making out with a couple people, and Bea's kind of, exploring, getting back at him a little bit, whatever, could be just be being authentic, like saying, hey, like clearly you're kind of exploring, so I have to open my horizons as well, and kind of seemed to lock in on Caleb. Good for her. She did make some comments about Gabrielle that afterwards kind of had some thoughts and feelings about, so then they had a conversation about it. One of the saddest things that you'll notice watching this show is, of course, you have the OG Islanders. The OGs kind of stick together for the most part. Like, they try to be welcoming, but even as you've seen, like, when some of the girls came in, like, are they showing them the house? And maybe some do, and others ones are like, what you do in the challenge? And like, oh, you're the outsider trying to steal my man, or, or vice versa. I think usually the men are a little bit more cool with the other men. I think it's more the women that are kind of having these kind of things come up. There has been a history in other seasons where the OGs kind of protect themselves. This drove me crazy last season. I really wanted Huda out of there. I was like, this girl is a ticking time bomb. She's emotionally traumatizing everybody in there. Get her out, and they would not, because they had blind loyalty to her, right? And just kept kind of giving her chances. And I get it, you want to protect your friends, and there's also something called accountability. That was something that was just really hard to watch, so I'm not surprised. People kind of do it here too. And you definitely saw it in this challenge where eventually a lot of the men started to kind of gang up on Soul. She's one of the brand new girls, and between her and Jen, Soul has definitely been a little bit more of a focus because she's actively hanging out with one of the guys that is in a relationship, who's an original guy too, but in a relationship with one of the original girls. She definitely was getting a lot more heat than Jen was, because Jen wasn't really being perceived as much of a threat. Soul was kind of getting targeted, but naturally or not, it's fucked up. There's only so much a person's gonna be able to take. I don't remember the exact wording of the question, but something like along the lines like, he was kind of more of a home wrecker kind of vibe, like more like cross boundaries, things like that. Soul was taking it at first, and then eventually she shut down and got upset and walked away from the challenge and was crying for a while, even after the challenge. I wasn't surprised. It's something that I really don't always respect that the Islanders do, but again, this is how groups work. This is groupthink, and things like this, like just social dynamics, are such a fascinating thing, but they can be very dangerous at times. I've seen other times in maybe other seasons where they would just naturally, like, not even like thinking about the question, they would just make sure everybody was equal. That's always like the safe option. I know it's not really, what the show is hoping for. They want the drama. It was really sad to kind of see Soul going through that. She does seem like a genuine person. She hasn't really been disrespectful to Melanie and like said mean things about her or anything like that. She's just genuinely like hanging out with Soul. Caleb and Corbin kind of had a chat about Kenzie. I don't remember what the outcome was with that, but Caleb has not really fully been very committal with Kenzie, which is going to be really interesting to see where that's kind of going. Like, it's just kind of odd. Like, I don't really see him like really pulling her for a ton of chats, or like it just feels, he feels like a very slow moving kind of guy. So I'm really interested to kind of see where that goes, because it does feel a little bit stagnant, even though like Kenzie's like hanging out with both of these guys. Sincere checked in with Soul, you know, he's hanging out with her. He feels bad to see her crying and wanted to check in with her afterwards on how everything was going. I mean, green flag on that. Melanie's gonna have her thoughts and feelings about that, right? To see him console another woman. But it is what it is. I mean, there's also a part of being human. When it comes to emotions and like, you know, scarcity mindset with like our relationships, that's not always gonna win. Gabriel and Bea had their conversation. Gabriel, like I said earlier, said he was kind of confused about some of the stuff that Bea said in this challenge, was kind of interested, like questioning, like, is he kind of scared that she's moving on? Again, I don't know what he really expected. He's been, I mean, I guess technically he hasn't been in the wrong fully, but he's just been kind of focusing on himself, which is a good thing. But there's definitely been, I think there was definitely more room for him to be mindful of how he's interacting with these women, or how vulnerable he's getting, or talking to Bea beforehand. I just feel like I understand why she's confused. But that really seemed to kind of like shake him a little bit. He really kind of picked up on like, what was that about? Why were you saying those things about me? It was interesting. You know, as we're coming to the end of the episode, so this is where, I think I mentioned it last time, like we ended the other episodes basically like they said America's gonna vote, so we have the recoupling coming up, right? So the recoupling happens. It is America's vote for who the new bombshells, remember there's 3 of them, we have Jen, Soul, and Caleb, right, who they're going to be matched with, and then it'll kind of then see who's left over and match people from there. The way that America voted, we have Caleb got matched up with Kenzie, so that means Corbin has been kicked to the curb, at least uncoupled. Doesn't mean he's necessarily kicked out of the villa, but he is uncoupled. I think that one was pretty predictable, right? They've been connecting. Jen got matched with Gabriel. That was the main one that he was connecting with, or that she was connecting with too, so we're not surprised about that. And Gabriel, you know, kind of has been going around, so it did seem like his relationship with Bea was kind of having some cracks, so again, that one was not surprising. Soul got matched with Sincere. Not surprising at all. I think we all saw that coming, but of course it was emotional that it happened. And then everybody kind of matched up from there, pretty much in their typical. The problem though is, so now we have 3 people that those new bombshells replaced that are now uncoupled. So we had Corbin, Melanie, and Bea. So then they're like, okay, Corbin, you have to pick between the 2 on which one you want to couple up with. I can't remember if they disclosed that the person was going to get kicked out or not, but that was the end result. What was interesting is these are both women, not surprisingly, because that's what happens when the crack happens in relationships. You start talking to other people. But of course, it would happen to be Melanie and Bea, who he actually had just had chats with. So it was kind of interesting to see. Corbin ended up choosing Melanie, which not surprising. I'm not gonna lie, I had some PTSD kind of flashbacks of like Huda, where people kept choosing Huda and she was staying around. I'm like, are you really connecting with her? Is that really somebody you want to be in a relationship with? What are we doing? Trying to be unbiased, but it's really hard with some of the things I'm seeing. It's just been like Melanie like trying to keep going up for interrupting them in chats and like just not being able to manage her emotions well, and like not being able to hold back. I don't remember which was this episode or the last one, but like she runs off when she's crying and I'm like, oh, like this is just have your feelings. I know it's gonna happen. One of the biggest topics in therapy is emotion regulation and distress tolerance. Learning how to manage your emotions when you have them and what you do with them. Those are things that we might not have been taught, but we are responsible for the outcome. I just don't really care for some of the ways that she navigates those things. The end result, sadly, was Bea got kicked off the island, or out of the villa. So sad, not surprising. She was one of the OG people, and in some ways also seemed like one of the more mature. You're kind of just seeing this does kind of mirror what happens in dating outside. Sadly, is a lot of people are not ready for the mature relationships. I'm not saying everybody else is immature. Of course, there are some that are, but I'm not really fully surprised to see like the more emotionally mature people staying, the more emotionally mature people leaving. Because even though Bea had her moments, she definitely was a little bit more emotionally mature than Melanie. I'm not fully surprised that, you know, because I said the same thing about Sean. Bea, there was times where like she seemed like the most emotionally mature girl there. It's kind of hard to fully tell because not all of them have gone through the same exact things, but she's gone through some stuff and she's handled it for the most part well. Yeah, I had a little bit of kind of spiciness in like the way she was speaking, but guardedness, but it was definitely like, I think for the most part, well handled. So I'm excited to kind of see where we go from here, but we've officially got our second person out of the villa. After this, there's supposed to be like aftermath chats. I don't really know what that's gonna look like, but we'll see. See you then.